It's recess.
It is recess, and it always goes by too fast.
I know. First recess where we are live.
We are live. I have no idea what to expect from this business.
How do you feel?
A little nervy
Yeah?
because my mouth can kinda take off faster than my butt.
Yeah?
Yeah, so,
Well, this
um
is the first time viewers have seen a peek behind the curtain
yeah,
of what our podcast setup looks like.
yeah,
This happened a little bit sooner than I think we were expecting.
because our listeners are growing more and more. It's pretty exciting, and I guess I didn't know what to expect, Seth. You put me into something that I wasn't sure what was happening here.
Yeah, we started this with the idea of like, hey, let's just record some stuff and if people listen, they listen. But really
Right.
it's more for us, right? And then it started growing and I've already got 4 viewers.
Oh.
Uh,
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
yeah, and now we're at a point where we're hitting thousands of listens on our podcast. We're at like 100 viewers on Facebook, which we haven't really
Well, we just had that up for not very
just
long.
just started it really. It
Yeah.
was kind of a dormant site,
Yeah.
our social media page for a long time, and then
And then a lot of people reaching out to us
yeah.
too, especially in light of all the school closures and a lot of the things that are just going on in education in general.
So
So,
I think if I'm not mistaken, right now there is a school board meeting happening.
in this very moment,
I think so.
it's
Eh,
appropriate during recess time.
yeah, yeah. So if there's not a lot of or of viewers, we understand. A lot of people are, I'm sure, probably going to that school
Meeting.
board meeting.
That's a big one. I think they're gonna talk I would imagine they're gonna talk about a couple of those school closure recommendations that they've kind of put out there, so I would imagine there's gonna be some folks up there.
So we have done a little bit of research on our end. I reached out to Tanya Sutherland
Hmm,
about a week and a half ago, just asking what the policy was on FOIA requests, how what that procedure looked like. No response. So I had to do some digging over the last few days. Finally found the policies and the policy change. I think that happened in like 2019 to kind of formalize the process. So I had to go all the way back to 2019 to kind of get an understanding of what the process looks like and what paperwork needed to be filled out.
well, I imagine they're really busy, so I could understand why you probably just didn't get a response,
Yeah.
and I would imagine too the hoops that you have to jump through will be interesting. Legally, like, what is that? Is it a 30-day turnaround or
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
I don't know, is that legal or process-wise? Like, they could probably change their mind on anything they want to.
so with the not with the documents. They have to respond within 30 days and produce documents.
Okay.
I think there's a policy in place that says that they will respond within 7 days to any requests that they get.
Mhm.
There's some leeway in there.
Okay.
So who knows kind of what that's actually going to look like in terms of what we get. They can also cite what I think is going to happen is they're going to cite personnel matters
Oh,
uh,
sure. Yeah,
and
you
kind of
can't reveal names.
yeah, kind of lock it behind that. I
Absolutely.
I'm a little
Be pretty
hesitant there
typical.
though, because I think that especially like people who are
On the advisory, isn't that what I put?
yeah, I think it's an advisory
Advisory
committee.
committee? Mhm.
I think the people that are making these decisions should be known to the public. I think that's important.
Well, yeah, because they should if they're an advisory committee, they should be having some feedback from the public at some point. I think in my second blog, I mentioned about how we should be hearing from the community voice, especially when these schools are, I don't know, they're set up in the community. I think about the one school, The community is literally built around the school. The school was sitting out in the middle of the prairie a long time ago. I know I've been here for a while, but it was literally kind of tucked back in the prairie, and houses are now like, built around the school. So, for me, I just keep posing the question, I wonder w how many of those community members knew about this? 'Cause I don't know,
Well, I feel like
seems interesting.
this whole thing has been, like, steeped in, like, I feel like I'm in, like, a cloak and dagger.
They have a process. They have to follow this process, whatever the process is, and to me, again, you're treating it with a lot of yeah, it could be if you wanna call it cloak and dagger, that just seems really dark and mysterious,
I mean,
cloak and
that's
dagger.
how it's felt. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
we start getting notifications from people within district that are like, "Hey, this is coming." I mean,
Mhm.
we've gotten word. I mean, that was the first time
Yeah.
anyone has heard outside of the district that anything is even in play.
Well, there's been some buzzing, and, it doesn't
Yeah.
take long in this town. The buzzing starts, and then, there's all kinds of other things that creates chaos, so I can understand there needs to be some communication systems in place. I definitely agree, but I think there's a lack of transparency and has been, and I mean, I mention a lot of different things that I've observed that, if in public education, I think there needs to be a far more transparency, especially now. And our parents are telling us, I mean, they're telling the system this isn't working because I feel like they don't have that transparency that they're asking.
So and we're getting feedback from parents that are like, "I don't want a big school. I
Yeah,
want my kids to go to a small
I've
school."
been hearing that a lot.
It seems like there's this disconnect between the community and then the school district.
Well, when you're in a system, Seth, I think when you're sitting in a system, a lot of times, and I've said this many times as a leader in my own building, you can't always see the forest through the trees. I mean, the writing is on the wall. Parents are out and out telling in subtle ways by removing, changing, not showing up to schools on Fridays. Like, they're trying to send messages to the system, but the system wants to continue to do what it, has always done. And right there, this is the best time ever to start reinventing. Like, reinvent some shit. Like, let's think out of the box and listen to our parents and really dig into what we know works. And right now, standardized testing and treating every kid like they're the same does not work. In fact, we're in a time now where your uniqueness and creativity is what's gonna set you apart. And in the system, it doesn't highlight that.
Well, we had a meeting with the superintendent in Matitsi a few weeks ago now.
Yeah, that was a great trip.
One of the things that he said that stuck with me is the education system is where creativity goes to die.
Mhm.
You know, it's we standardize everything. We focus on making everybody fit into these boxes and you know, in the hopes that everybody's getting the same education or under the guise that everybody's getting the same education. I don't know if that like I don't know what the root like I don't know if it's a thing where we're trying to do what's best for the kids or we're using that as a pretense to push our own agenda.
Well, you have to align to the learning journey. So, colleges need to reformat themselves too.
Yeah.
High schools, like, you just have to you follow that journey, but, I think when I went, Sir Ken Robinson, who came to Casper College back in 2010, I think is when I saw him. He's an education historian, and when I watched him that night speak in front of there was probably a couple hundred of us there. I don't think many people from Casper knew this man, but I mean, he lit me on fire as a leader, a new leader, just excited for what could potentially be for kids, and I think I was always trying to create that by having greenhouses and advocating for greenhouses and that kind of outdoor learning and a lot of field trips. The population I served with the kids I served, they didn't, those aren't well-traveled, diverse kids with a lot of background knowledge, so I was constantly pushing on that, trying to build that. I think when I kinda reflect on that speech that he gave, it was one of those things where right now, our schools continue to be what I look as a factory, and we're building these robots through this standardization, and when a kid doesn't fit, or if a kid doesn't look right or talk right or whatever, it doesn't fit in whatever the judgment call can be, then they're quickly pushed out of the system or made to feel like they don't belong. So, I think now more than ever, like I said, I've said it over and over, like, we need to be reinventing ourselves as a school system, K through collegiate, and whether that is immersing kids in trades earlier on, I don't know. I come from a very different lens. I don't come from a large school lens. I come from a small school lens, and everybody that I have ran into as of lately keeps saying, "I don't want a huge, gigantic school for my kid." Now, granted, these are a lot of elementary parents that are saying that, but I just feel like kids get lost, and I talk a little bit about that in my blog.
What you one of the things we were talking about off air is, like, you're meeting with people who are, like, don't know you as an educator per se, like,
No,
just in the community, and, like, they're coming up and saying, like, "Hey, like, had this meeting with, parent-teacher conference, and, my kid is" they labeled my kid as what was it? Weird, outside the box.
very interesting,
Yeah, and
which seems very judgmental. I'm like, everybody's interesting if you take the time. Every kid and child and person is interesting, but to make that comment to a parent and then proceed to say, "I just can't get your child to, like, listen," and, well, you're probably not being interesting.
yeah. Well, and I think that it's like, okay, well, if they don't fit in a box, then we don't know what to do with them,
Right.
and that's sad for a lot of if they don't fit in the box, what do? We gotta
Well, whose
put them
box
back in
is
the
it?
box.
Whose box is it? It's a system box,
Yeah.
and it's a standardized box, and between the education system and the health system, they do the same thing. Everything is a standardization. So, I mean, you and I could go to the doctor, and they're gonna tell you, "Oh, you're gonna need to take this milligram of medicine," and they'll say the same thing to me even though our bodies are vastly different. It's again, it's standardized. If I go in to the doctor and I get weighed and they go, "Well, you're really 40 pounds overweight," but my bone size is very different and my body stature is very different. Again, it's the same kind of thing in education. If you don't fit this specific look mold, it just you don't fit. And that's hard for kids.
So let's talk about we're in a we're in a time where in what, the last 7 years, we've gone through how many school closures?
Mm.
And potentially 2 more, right? So
Yeah, I think it was 5, and then if it's these 2, it's 2, but I mean, I mentioned some schools prior to that, Garfield and Willard, they were a merging school at one point. Yeah, like, that's happened. So, I don't know, when I first started, I felt like there was so many elementary schools, and I don't remember the exact count. I wanna say, like, 20 or something. Could be more than 20, but all the community if you just drive around Casper, all the communities are centered those schools are pretty much in the middle of those communities.
when you took me today, it was pretty eye-opening because I hadn't been to a lot of these schools that are closed, or I guess the district will call them mothballed, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, they're
Um,
gonna just sit there now, unless they decide to sell them.
What was interesting to me is it's not like there's upkeep. Like,
Mm-mm.
you would think if you're keeping these on the books, if you're paying, the property taxes and all the other pieces that are going into it, you keep them maintained. I mean, like, there was boards on the
Mhm.
windows,
Weeds.
there was metal,
Mhm.
like, in the
Mhm.
fencing, like, just curled up and looked like it had been.
Yeah, it's they look abandoned, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's because that's what they are, even though they're mothballed, but they're not. They're grounds and everything. You could tell when we drove by today. None of that. There's no more district resources per se put into grounds or maintenance. The building is shut. Any curriculum books, desks, tables, depends. They're all, you know, tidied into each room, and I can tell you there's some schools that weren't left tidy. There were some schools that are left in a mess. But yeah,
Well, I mean, and this is just opinion, but what do you think's happening? Like, do we think that the district is feeling like, okay, well, we just we're in this retrenchment period. We got to pull back. We got to pull back, and the best way to do that is let's close all these auxiliary schools, all these smaller schools, and bring them all in. And I mean, are we going towards a period where we're going to have one high school, one middle school, one elementary school that are huge because that's the
it's
cost saving?
well, but it's easier to run those large schools like that, and it's more corporate. You start to lose your feel, but I think that's the thing that's really interesting with Natrona County. It's a school of choice. Well, now the choice is being slowly taken away, and, regardless of what they say, the schools are starting to be stripped to look more and more alike. And I can just say after stepping back, I've had some feedback from colleagues in the building where, new leaders come in and they are kind of told what they should or shouldn't do, and they don't. I think back in the day when I first started, we had a lot more autonomy in what we could do as a leader and to set ourselves apart as something that was unique, and I think I prided myself on that, like, with the greenhouses, with the PBL, with the field trips, building the background knowledge for kids, and letting teachers really kind of run that aligned with the standards. But when your standardized tests don't come back high, then they're gonna tell you you're doing everything wrong when I would probably have a huge disagreement with my community that I was servicing and the kids. I mean, I heard from years ago with kids that they just said, "We never I still remember that field trip, Mrs. Logan, when we." Those are memories that you tie back to your learning that you'll never
It stays
you
with
never
them.
forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We we're told that one of the main reasons these 2 schools are closing is because of low enrollment.
Yeah.
At the same time, we're also hearing from staff and other people, like parents, that, hey, we're trying to get into these schools, but we're told there's a waiting list. And, administration at the school level is saying, well, hold on. I mean, like, we've got openings. Why are we turning kids away? Can you tell me and walk me through, at least when you were in the district, what that process looked like?
Well, when I first started, enrollment was in-house, meaning if I was a parent in the Mills community, I literally walked into the building, talked to the office manager and or principal, and would enroll my kid or call them on the phone. Then I don't remember what year that switched over. They decided that it needed to be more centralized, and I would imagine there was some leaders out there that were maybe picking and choosing families,
Sure.
I don't
Yeah.
know, like, you could probably do that, and I would imagine that might have happened, and that could have been a little piece of that, but even then, to make it once they made it centralized, some of the interesting things, especially after you watched for years, like in my particular community, parents didn't always sign their kids up in January. They were very late to sign their kids up. So when you start talking about how you staff a school, it's based off of the kids that are enrolled. So those are called full-time equivalents, FTEs. So when you're staffing, you would get a certain amount of staff. Well, that would always get tight because they would look at the enrollment and then, history always showed that a lot of the community I serviced, a couple of my other colleagues, those parents just didn't enroll those kids. They would literally enroll their kids the first
Day
day
of,
of
yeah.
school or, like, the Friday before, and so then you're scrambling to make sure you have a teacher. The district, while I was there, did a pretty good job because I always say I'd forecast and say, "We've always had another kindergarten. It always fills. It continues to fill." Well, as I stepped away, they cut an FTE at my last building. During that enrollment time, they roll that out around March, and that's when the leader principal gets their FTE numbers to know what they're staffing, how much is cut, how much they're gonna get. Well, again, historically, parents don't always register their kid in January, and there's a lot of things that could be going on. We don't know if they're gonna, don't know if we're gonna stay in Casper, don't know if we might change schools, don't, all of those things can sometimes be up in the air. But what happens is you then at the last minute, like it happened this year, there's a phone call to the principal saying, "You have another FTE, you need to hire a teacher." Well, then you've got a culture shift that you're trying to hire somebody at the last minute. That person comes in, and if they even come in during the PD time, just start learning and being a part of the team, a lot of times that doesn't happen. That's happened to me a couple times. But then what happened is I just got rid of a really, really great teacher. They went to another school because you cut my FTE. They could have stayed at the school,
And now I've got a new
and
teacher
now I've
who
got a
has
new
to
teacher.
integrate into
Uh-huh.
our culture, who has to
And
learn the
sometimes aren't
processes.
I mean, sometimes they're literally starting the day of, or you're hiring a sub to come in and cover that class until that teacher can get in the
Catch
shoe.
up, yeah.
Yeah. So, uh, to me, when you already know some historical things about how people kind of work, but it's not just that, Seth. There was many times when I was told by parents, "Help me understand why I'm on a waiting list to get into your school." And I said, "Oh, I didn't know there was a waiting list." And then I heard across, district that, "Oh, yeah, so all of a sudden there was these waiting lists, a lot of us leaders didn't hear about them, and then all of a sudden they would become public. Well, yeah, you have 3 kids or you have," and you go, "Well, why are you just now telling me about the list and then you cut my FTE? We could have filled a class." And I know of a colleague that happened to, and it's hard. As a leader, it's so hard again because you lose really great teachers because they are like, "Well, I don't know if they're gonna cut the school. I'm gonna go move to a school that I can see is stabilized."
Yeah.
So some schools are used to not have that sustainability, and I think the last school I was in, they did that a lot to me in the 8 years. I mean, that happened a lot. And part of it is, you look at that is we were trying to grow too. So you're trying to get your roots, you're trying to establish who you are as a school, and that's a hard thing when enrollment and stuff changes all the time.
And so you're correct me if I'm wrong, but you're saying that the first time you're hearing that there's waiting lists for your school is
School's already started, well, for some of us, and I know the couple colleagues that I talked to recently had just kind of mentioned that, and that happens, and they lose staffing.
is that because the FTEs were previously cut, or they were planning on cutting?
They cut them in the spring, and then they don't know what happens over the summer to then have that ready for when school starts in September, late August. You've already cut your people, and so then
So now in the
leaders.
district's mind, well, there is a waiting list because we've let one go and they're somewhere else
Sure.
now.
Yeah. But the problem, we talked about the one-year onlys too. That becomes a problem too, but now they're fixing that.
Yeah.
you can't lose your good teachers if you wanna make great gains on your standardized testing, and that happened 2 or 3 years in a row, so, yeah, I don't understand all that logic, and quite frankly, I think it takes it out of the hands of the parent. If it's a school of choice and I as a parent choose a school, then I better be able to go to the school I choose.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? I mean, otherwise, what's the point of having school of choice?
Right.
So, at what point at what point do we well, like, what recourse do we have as community members? I mean, we've got we're being told now
Well,
that
what
2
why
schools are closing.
told, that's the thing. You're the community. The community needs to step up and say, You can tell us all day long, but we've also, if they voted in a board, why is the school board not listening to their constituents? I don't understand that. But then if the constituents aren't talking, so people need to know, they need to go show up. And that's the thing. That's what's really hard because there's a lot of these communities. Most of the communities that have closed were Title I communities, blue collar workers. These are not people that feel comfortable standing up in front of a board in that formalized process. They don't some of them don't even know how that works. But when you vote in school board members, they need to be listening to you, and what I'm already hearing in the community, I'm not a board member. I'm just people have come up and talked to me sharing, "I don't like large classrooms. I don't want my kid in a big school. The standardized tests are stupid." Well, they're pushing that. Like, that is the big push. That's the big celebrations. We're glowing on our standardized testing. Well, I'd like to see the glowing on growth and the supporting of the kids' creativity, collaboration. Guess what? Those are really hard to measure. Those are super har How do you measure those? Super hard.
Yeah, I think I mean, what's scary for me seeing these school closures is it's become a pattern, you
Mhm.
know? This is what I guess is the norm moving forward. We
Mhm.
identify smaller schools, schools that may be on the outreaches of the communities. We
Mhm.
wanna bring them all in, and we wanna make sure that they're all the same. Like,
Yeah.
if they're not the same, if you're Woods and you're teacher-led
Yeah.
and you don't fit the district mold, well, I mean, makes sense. Well, like,
Right.
why would we keep something that doesn't fit? You know, it kind of
But
goes
I think they've slowly had to make changes from where they were because they were really a community that had a waiting list. I mean, it was hard to get your kid into Woods. I know people that would they it was 3 years, they would plan 3 years ahead of time before their kindergartner was ready to make sure that they could get into Woods. Like, it that school had a reputation with their problem-based learning and thematic approach that parents were after that. So why did that stop all of a sudden? Well, a lot of times the leaders that originally started those concepts retire out, new blood comes in, they're probably maybe not as passionate, and or I wonder about just the leadership in general not holding true to what that is, and did Woods evolve? I don't know. Were they evolving to continue to be that teacher-led school that had such passion and drive towards the problem-based learning and that premise that they really set? Like, again, a school that parents were planning 3 years in advance to make sure that their kids could get in.
well,
And it was a K-8 school, it's been a K-8 school, so right there, it tells me already you've got parents that don't wanna put their children into the large middle schools, and again, these are percentages that you see, but we have a few schools in our district that are, we have a couple that are K-8, and you've got parents that are choosing that because it's a smaller venue, but I don't even know if parents know all those choices either, so
yeah, you told me one today, I think it was poison spider.
Mhm.
I didn't even know that
Yeah.
existed. I
Oh,
mean,
and it's an amazing school. Yeah.
and to Woods' point, or in their defense, I mean, I've heard anecdotally that it wasn't so much teacher led in these last few years. I heard there was a lot of district oversight,
Yeah.
being told what they can and couldn't do. And I don't know the rationale or the reasoning for it, but I mean, if you've got a district that's coming in heavy handed and telling you how to run, then that kind of stifles your
Well,
ability to kind of.
I think too in education, I look at both sides. There's been a lot of legal issues in education in general, especially around special ed. And I'm not talking just Natrona County. I'm talking national. There's some big stuff. And so I think leaders grow worried about putting a district into a lot of legal issues that could pursue. But I just don't think you can man that just thinking that the principal's gonna hold that up all the time. So there could have been some pushback on that because of teacher led. I don't know.
Yeah, but my frustration with that is, as educators, we shouldn't be concerned about litigation. We should be concerned about what's best for the students. If what's best for the students is having them in this environment, and there may be some litigious things that pop up because of it, then as an education system, should we not be focusing on the true, like, what we talk about, what's true all the time, like
Mm.
what's truly right for the kids?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I think if you're building a school with the the collaboration in the community, you shouldn't be having that kind of business. And I think we've been in too much of that business that then deflects from the learning of children. And I think that's really where a lot of things have gone is when you start rolling in a lot of legal issues and policies and procedures, you have forgot completely who you're serving, and you're serving kids. And when you start looking in their eyes and you go, well, this trumps, we can't do this policy because we had a situation with another. Well, again, not every kid is the same. And then you're putting them in a box because of a legal situation. You created a policy that won't support a change or a support for a kid that needs to happen.
oh, and it's what's interesting to me is there's this dichotomy that we're having within our community where we as a city, you look at city council, you look at what they're doing, and they're removing those barriers to be more like open to new ideas. And I think we gotta address that. If we're always focused on litigation, then there is no room
No,
to change.
no. And that's
What
the
does
fear.
litigation breed? It breeds standardization,
Yep.
and it breeds stability,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
We want to be as stable as possible. We want to make sure that everybody fits the same mode.
Well, that's because 'cause you're running an education system like a corporation, and you can't run it like a corporation. You are dealing with humans. Now, if I am gonna make a bunch of Ferraris, I have specs that those Ferraris need to go through, right?
Yeah.
And they all need to be the same to make sure that the car drives safe, all the things, right? With a child, you you don't. And there's become so many processes and policies because of a legal situation that then a child that really needs it can't have exactly, or the staffing's not there because you're only limited to these XY resources, or the system doesn't allow the flexibility to do what one child needs because we've got 50 others that trump you. So it becomes this number system, it becomes a game, and in the end, it's not a meet everybody where they are at kind of thing.
Well, I think it's not what is best for kids either.
No,
I feel like, I mean, in a perfect world, we don't have litigation. Great. We don't live there. Things are messy. Things should be messy. Like, there should be times where people are saying, hold on, wait.
but I think social media now I'm gonna kinda turn a little bit. Social media has been a huge impact in this too, Seth. because there how quickly an allegation can go through social media that can disrupt the learning environment in a school. It can happen in minutes. And I have been on the end of that, and I've watched colleagues on the end of that, that I just look at it this day and age and I'm like, where have people lost their minds that if you have an issue, like I'm not the one that's going to go online and bash the local restaurant. That is no. I'll go into the restaurant and say, I don't think I'll ever be back, but thanks, those kind of things. Or I won't go back and it's not to talk about. And if somebody asks me, I'm like, well, my adventure wasn't real great, but yours might be better. Well, they're doing that with schools, which I don't know good, bad, but I can say that people aren't thinking about the impact of the human on the other end of that because you only have so much information in the allegation. And
Right.
so much of the allegation, a lot of it's the parents will get on and say this teacher or those teachers and this school or that leader, and they don't really they've learned that they don't really mention names, but they can allude enough to know who it is and where it happened and all of those things, and it's their side. And so then the educator is silenced.
So,
We're told that we gotta be bigger than that. Well, okay, but that how is that making somebody show up to work the next day feeling excited and
well, who's going to
passionate?
bat for them, right? Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
I think the other piece of this, and we've saw this, last year I called you with a parent who, like, again, like, weren't we as a district are not being open in terms of, like, what's happening,
Well,
transparency.
yeah,
We
and
look at a parent who's calling and saying like, "Hey, this is happening. Is this normal?" Like, we should know what normal is, like, we should be open enough to be able to call up the school and trust that what we're hearing is, "Okay, well,
but
this is what's happening."
there's your answer right there. So, trust is gone. I mentioned that in the blog. When you withhold information, when you do these processes that seem to be, what did you say, cloak and dagger?
Yeah.
Trust disintegrates. So, trust is the main root of it, and how do you bring the community and the people back around the table to trust that you can move forward? And a lot of the things is, when you don't have all the information, you don't always trust, so go in and ask who would have the information. Your people on Facebook don't always have the information, and they're not the best people to vet your allegation through.
Right.
Because you can get the drum beaters that are on your side and go, "Yay, keep going. I hate that school too." Why? You just doing it because you're on their I don't I don't understand it. That to me doesn't make sense.
But we're in a society right now where, like, things are being kept. There is no trust. How do we rebuild the trust? Like, where does that start?
I'm asking the community to step up and start. If you need to have some leaders in the community that are gonna step up and go to bat for the kids. And what I'm hearing from community members is they want smaller schools. They don't really care about standardized testing. In fact, I hear things like, "Well, I want my kid to know how to set up a business," or "I want my kid to know how to do a presentation," or, there's things.
Finance.
Yeah,
This is something that I
finance
hear all
even.
the time.
Yep,
Finance.
yep,
Teach our kids about credit cards.
yep.
Why are we not teaching our kids about credit cards?
Mhm. And how to invest money and, like, why does that have to come from the outside? Those things to me sound really academic to me.
Well, and the district will say, "Well, we do have a finance class." They're it's being taught in school. We've got kids that have gone through that, and
Mhm.
they're being told, "Don't ever invest. Don't get a credit card. Everything's gotta be cash."
Mhm.
When we're in a society where houses, you know, two-bedroom houses in this town are $300,000, and people are making $60,000 a year on average.
Mhm.
How do you save? and apartments are $1,300 a month.
Well, and, in Wyoming,
Doesn't make sense.
we come from this work ethic here, and I think we have gotten away from really who we are. We've lost our roots, and again, this is getting into the weeds, and I'm feeling like our recess time is
Yeah,
coming to a close, but
but no, because why aren't we teaching kids
I
how
say
to
the same thing, Seth.
why not teach them the impact? What's the harm in teaching these kids the impact of what happens
Yep,
if you use your credit cards correctly?
yep,
How do you use a credit card
mhm,
correctly? That's something that
absolutely.
like I've been told because I've
But
had
there's
mentors.
some things I'm telling you, like Wyo Town, we do that, and we send 4th graders. That's the thing, start it in elementary.
Yeah,
But I was told, I mean, I had my people were doing all these things, but I'm hit over the head constantly because the standardized tests, standardized tests. I want kids to read. I want kids to write. I want kids to be a problem solver. I want them to know math. I want them to know those things. That was never not on the radar. But to perform on a standardized test, I really wanted to know a growth. I wanted to make sure that every kid was growing. And back in the day, we had what was called the NWEA growth assessments. Those assessments could see the growth of a kid over time, and teachers would track that and could go in and systematically find out skill gaps that they needed to support the kid to make sure that they could continue to keep building on what they were learning. Now it has been such this huge push for a one-time test. When you become a 3rd grader, it's the Y top, and here it comes, and get ready for the show. And you wanna know what happens in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade? They're teaching them how to take the test. We had
yeah.
to do that. We had to get our kids ready to know how to take the test. You gotta have them show up to the game. It's a game. But our parents are saying they don't care about the standardization. They care more about creativity, problem solving, collaboration, things that you can't measure on a standardized test in a manner that is going to give you great feedback. But if you watch a kid grow over time, you can see that and you can measure it. It's not on a standardized test. I don't know that's for those people. They need to figure that out. But I just knew as a principal watching kids when they'd enroll in my school as kindergarten and then leave as a 5th grader, I could just shake my head going, "They are so ready. They're so ready for the next step." Like, they can talk to people, they're looking people in the eye, they can speak up for what they need, they can advocate for their learning, they ask good questions, they're engaged and do their job. Those are all things that we look at and go, "Those are those are things I want." I wanted good kids. I wanted kids that would engage. We were going to our Mills town council meetings. We were teaching them in 2nd and 3rd grade how to go, request things for the greenhouse or our school at Mills. We literally could just get on the agenda. It was just because it was small town, small school. Our kids were already doing those things, and they should be doing those things at that age because they can.
And I mean, we keep coming back to mm, we're removing those small schools. I
Mhm.
mean, we are what, 2 weeks from hearing that these 2 schools were closing, and I wonder if this would have been made public had, we not.
I wonder how many people are at the board meeting advocating for it. I wonder the leaders in those 2 schools, because I can tell you, I mean, I couldn't be a huge I had to ride the fence. I had to just like, "Well, whatever happens," you know, because 'cause you're in the district's pocket, and yeah, you might be the leader of the school, but we're paying you. So, you're kinda
Were you ever told that you couldn't go to a board meeting or you couldn't speak,
mm,
to parents about what's happening?
I wouldn't say in that format, but I was told by a leader what I could or couldn't say one time at a board meeting, and I was told, yeah, that was interesting.
And
That didn't have anything to do with school closures. That
sure.
had to do with some social emotional stuff.
Well, what's the problem with social emotional stuff?
Well, yeah, I get it's all again, it's all politics and timing. So,
Mm.
yeah.
We're
It's all
here
about the politics, and I'm sorry kids just don't play the game very well. I mean, you can teach them how to work through it, but I just, again, politics being involved in some of that's not okay.
we're hearing now we're 2 weeks out from hearing about Woods and Bar None, and we're already hearing talk of Evansville, and there's another school that
Paradise Valley, maybe.
Paradise
I mean, I don't you could throw out any name, and I don't really like to because I don't like to put that out
out
there,
there.
but there could be I mean,
I mean, but people are already
every
talking about it.
leader
Where
Oh,
is this all coming from? Like,
I know.
are we really in a situation where next year we're gonna have 2 more school closures? I mean,
Possibly. I and again, I just go, "Where are all the kids?" And then we say we have waiting lists, and then you structure the waiting list to say, "Well, this school" so now again, you're creating these large schools because parents are having less and less choice,
yeah,
is what it comes down to. So I'm either gonna homeschool or now I got 2 less schools to choose from, you know what I mean?
are virtual. I mean, then now there's more and more virtual
Yeah,
schools are popping up
yeah,
in Wyoming. I mean,
yeah.
which I mean,
The Wyoming Virtual Academy is one of the oldest they were the first, and so they've really got it down to a good science, which we've talked on that podcast
yeah,
with Lisa. She's doing an amazing job with that.
I don't know that that's come out yet, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely on the way. If you
Mhm.
when you see that one pop up, if you're all listening and that's interesting to you, definitely listen in.
Yeah.
I think they are doing some interesting stuff. I here's here's what also is frustrating for me, and I don't want to bleed too much into our actual podcast, but I always thought that this had to be this way. I thought that schools had to be structured. Everybody had to fit in a box. There was no opportunity to make changes because this is a big system that we, have standardized to a point where there's no way to break the mold. But then we go and we see districts like Matitsi where, I mean, you've got you've got the community behind you, you've got the teachers behind you, you've got the parents behind you. I say community. I mean, like, I'm talking businesses.
Yeah.
The
They're engaged in the
businesses
school. Yeah.
are engaged. Like, there's an open door policy at that school where if you have questions, you don't need to make an appointment and have district leadership walk you through or
I felt that way at Mills when I first got there, and I would imagine the principal at Mountain View felt the same way. I know the principal at Barnum, she was a mentor of mine. I worked under her. She definitely felt the same way, and she would go to those city council meetings. It's just, set to n COVID was a huge impact, and I think, again, you gotta reformulate, you gotta get your feet back on the ground, we have to reestablish trust, we have to come together, we have to speak up for what we need and what's right for kids, and elementary kids have a great voice, and, again, where are they around the table? I haven't heard from any of them. I know when I was in that midst of closing, I talked to families together with the kids. I had to have many meetings with those kids saying, "This is what it's gonna look like now that we are moving." Lots of communication, lots of worries.
but
We
that's
That's
post finding out.
absolutely.
Was there conversations before? Like, let me ask you, you were in this.
Yeah.
When you knew that school was closing, were you w did you have the autonomy to say, "Okay, let me write an email to all of our parents and let them know, hey, our school's on the potential to close." Could you say, "Hey,
I
our
had a
school's in
meeting.
trouble."
I had a meeting, and it didn't go in trouble. I just said, "Here's where it is. We've sat on the school bus a couple times. We've looked at lots here. There was talk about merging Mills and Mountain View. we have an opportunity, we could stay, but this building can never get bigger, or we can move over this capacity school, which now pulls us out of Mills, but we still have Mountain View at the time. At no time, I'm going to say it 100 million times, at no time did I ever see the writing on the wall for Mountain View. At no time. Because I knew that one school needed to stay in that community, or
Well, you
again,
thought you
I
knew.
thought I knew, because that's your hope, that you can sustain the one school that's there in the community, and Mills couldn't grow. Footprint for it was just too small, and we couldn't grow, so, I mean, coulda moved into Mountain View, but I just said it to me, it would make it so much easier to keep your community together to move to a new school, and then again, I didn't have any,
Do you think
so
that do you think that the district gave that autonomy to Woods and bar none? Here's the other thing that's frustrating to me from the outside looking in. The same week that we find out that Woods and bar none are closing, there's a school board meeting where we're congratulating bar none for their high achieving of their test scores. Like, where is the breakdown here? Like, we say that test scores matter, and this is what we're striving for. We've got a school that's hitting test scores, may not be hitting enrollment to the point where they're at, or where the district wants them to be, but we're not in the same week that we say congratulations, y'all guys are doing it. You know, thank you for hitting the metrics that we've set. We say also we're going to close the school.
I know it's impossible to prove or causation, but I wonder if bar none is really down in population that much, if having a smaller population allowed them to do what they needed to do to get test scores turned around.
sure.
I mean, obviously, that's I
Mhm.
can pontificate about that all day, but it'd be hard to prove. But
Well, I wonder the same thing. I mean, the flip side, there's a flip side of that too, right? Like, if you've got a smaller school, there's a smaller number of individuals can really drag your test scores down. So you really got to be operating
You do.
on,
that's true. Yeah, everyone's got to be doing well.
yeah, like there needs to be interventions in place where,
Yeah,
we're addressing things. And I mean, it sounds like it's easier in a smaller school. I'm not in it. I don't know.
Mm.
you're right, though. Percentage wise, one kid is a bigger weight.
It is.
Yeah.
'Cause when I was in big schools in California.
Yeah,
Didn't matter. Yeah. I mean, you could have 20,
a
you could have
couple handfuls of kids that didn't.
Mhm,
you could have a bad classroom,
mhm.
and you could throw all your bad kids into one classroom, and it's not going to make them
I don't
mark.
like that bad kid
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no bad kids.
That's true. But it's so frustrating to me that we're in the same week we're saying, "Hey, great job." We're also saying, "Hey, you might not be here next year."
Yeah.
Like, what does that say to the community who's invested? What does that say to the teachers that have invested that time, regardless of the community, who've invested that time to get those test scores up, being told time and time again, "This is what's important. This is what's important. This is what's important." And then in the same week that we congratulate you and we recognize the efforts that you've been putting in, we say, also, we're probably going to take this school away.
Mhm.
Where's the sense of stability for a teacher? I can do everything that's being told of me and and still lose my home.
I just don't think that's the world. No, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't know. Stability is hard, right? I mean, does the world
Yeah.
really give us stability? I don't know if that's.
Well, I think hold on though,
Mhm,
because as an educator,
mhm,
you give up high pay
mhm.
for that stability.
You're right.
So we can't also say, hold well,
Yeah, you can't lose both.
yeah,
You made a trade.
I don't know. It's so
Mhm.
frustrating. And then to start hearing through the community, hey, we've got this school that's not worried and this school that's not worried.
Well,
What
and when you get fear in
yeah,
your
that's
leaders and your teachers, your families and your kids, and you're really wanting your test scores to roll out, I'm gonna tell you, you just dig a little bit in how the brain works and some Maslow stuff, and when you aren't feeling safe you're not gonna get great results for anything.
Well, it's why people often will give up
Yeah.
opportunity for safety.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And Ben Franklin, I think, had some quote
absolutely.
about that.
Yeah.
I just don't like this. If I'm the district right now, I'm trying to get ahead of this. I'm saying, okay, hey, we're gonna work through this with the community for bar none and woods, and we're gonna get through this. And you know, hey, we're hearing people are talking about other schools closing. Our stance is in the next 3 years, we're not closing a school. Or say, if
We're
that's
gonna listen to our community, and we're gonna decide.
yeah, if there is somebody on the chopping block, we're
Uh,
we're telling you right now, somebody's on the chopping block.
yeah, we're
It's
gonna
up to
bring you
you
in.
as the community to decide, which one.
Build a process for that
Yeah.
because there should be a lot of collaboration sitting around the table about what that could or could not look like and what is financially and fiscally responsible because of course you want to keep that out there, but I think there are a lot of other community entities, nonprofits, all kinds of things that could partnership and be in these schools to support what's going on.
Well, and what's gonna happen to these schools when they close? I mean, that's the other piece.
Well,
Derek, you weren't here, but me and Kobe took me on a little field trip today, and we went to a couple of the schools that are closed down.
Destroyed.
Yeah, I
mhm,
mean, it's like
One of the things I hate about California, they leave a bunch of vacant buildings and
mhm,
just build new ones, and the other
mhm,
ones would
and they're sitting there.
bring criminality into the
Mhm,
neighborhood or whatever because people just
mhm,
destroy things.
yeah,
It's like it shows you like an empty building is a symbol in your community, right?
yeah.
right. Yeah,
But why do they need to be empty? I mean, that's
Right.
the other question is
Right.
like, I mean, these communities, like, could benefit from a community center or,
Hey, there was one neat thing my district in California did do. We had attached family centers to some of our schools,
yeah.
mhm,
and we would do things like my district even paid me to teach love and law. Well, I didn't get paid. I was a teacher.
mm,
Well, no, I think they. I don't remember. Whatever. I think I did get paid for the evening stuff. I did get paid for the evening stuff. They paid me to teach love and logic classes in the community center for parents in the evenings, and then we had it was like a closed pantry kind of thing.
yeah,
Families could come in, so we used
yeah.
extra buildings that way.
There's a few communities I think that would benefit from that with in those closures.
Yeah, and I just don't again, it hurts me to see
Yeah,
more schools closing.
yeah,
Yep.
And, like, ultimately, it's just voices not being heard,
Yeah.
right? Like, communities talking.
Well, the process is not allowing. There's nothing in the process that allowed that because that gets messy when you start allowing people. But to me, there was no venue to open up to have a conversation about that.
yeah. That's one of the things I've loved working with you, Kobe. You've really opened my eyes to thinking outside the box. Because I'm at heart, I'm a pragmatist too. Like, okay, there's not enough money. What does that really mean? Like, I'll scrutinize that, but what else? Asking that question or not asking that question has made me miss a lot of opportunity. And when I talk to you, you always have these different ideas. It's like, is there anything we could do
Mhm.
before we just say there's not enough money?
Yeah.
I get the problem, but to be so narrow-minded on the solution without exploring different options. And sometimes we'll create policies that prevent us from exploring other
Mhm.
options. Then
Yeah.
why are we shooting ourselves in the foot?
Right.
Okay,
Well,
well,
I do
we're
have
gonna
to get back to class.
yeah, we're gonna end this recess
I
talk.
thought you were retired.
Well, yeah. I gotta go to a bathroom at least.
Yeah, we're gonna end this here. Stay on or just keep watching the Facebook feed. In about 10 minutes or so, we'll be back with, an actual full episode of our podcast. Thanks a bunch, guys. We'll talk soon.